and that is the near catastrophic, that is a quotation, car chase that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were involved in with Meghan's mother last night. This is after being pursued by paparazzi in New York. Their spokesperson has released this statement. This relentless pursuit, lasting over 2 hours, resulted in multiple near collisions involving other drivers on the road, pedestrians, and 2 NYPD officers. While being a public figure comes with a level of interest from the public, it should never come at the cost of anyone's safety. Joining me now, TalkTV's royal editor, Sarah Hewson. Hello, Sarah. So obviously, this is news that has almost just broken. We've known about it for around about an hour-ish, haven't we now?
Yeah, less than an hour, Vanessa. And this statement, as you've just read, was put out by a spokesperson for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. We understand that the incident happened last night in New York as they were leaving the Women of Vision Gala, at which Meghan had been awarded. And the spokesperson said that they were chased by highly aggressive paparazzi for 2 hours in a relentless pursuit over 2 hours. And they describe it as near catastrophic. We don't believe there are any injuries, certainly not of Harry, Meghan and Meghan's mother, Doria Ragland, but they are very shaken, we believe, and upset by this. I don't need to remind anyone of the echoes, the eerie echoes of Princess Diana in 1997, and that will have been at the forefront of their minds. They arrived at the venue last night in a black SUV. And it's believed they left in that SUV, but there are pictures that have been circulating on social media that show them in a taxi. Now, whether they had to try and change vehicles in order to lose the paparazzi, we don't know. But the spokesperson for them did go on to say that the dissemination of the images taken by the paparazzi, given the ways in which they were obtained, encourages a highly intrusive practice that is dangerous to all involved.
I mean, I can't help asking a question that I can't believe other people aren't wanting to ask, which is, you know, if you're being chased by the paparazzi, why do you give them the opportunity to chase? Why don't you simply pull over? Probably you're in a car with blacked out windows. I imagine that black SUV didn't have easy access. You think, you know, you don't have to enter a chase. You don't have to be chased, particularly, as you quite rightly says, you have this awful spectre of what happened to your mother hanging over your entire life. And we know Harry thinks about it all the time and is haunted by it. That's what he himself says. So you think, well, let's not participate in a 2-hour chase. And, you know, we don't have to escape them because we're performing a criminal act. We don't have to escape them because either of us is with a romantic partner we're not supposed to be with, so we want to elude them so they can't possibly take a picture of us. We've been thoroughly photographed and televised and everything else at this award ceremony that we've just been to, which couldn't be more public. So we won't play this ridiculous cat and mouse game that's terribly dangerous. We'll simply ask our driver to pull over and we'll get our security to come and talk to them, or we'll ask a police officer to come and tell the paparazzi to leave us alone, or we'll just wait quietly until they go away. But we won't do something that might endanger, as they say, other people's lives and limbs.
Well, we don't know the circumstances because we haven't heard from the NYPD, New York Police Department, about this. We've just had this statement from Harry and Meghan's spokesperson. Their security, according to reports in the US, did try their best to lose the photographers. I think probably hindsight is a very powerful tool, and when you're in the moment in that car, it would have been very frightening. I can certainly say, from having seen some of the images, they do look extremely distressed.
Can you describe them, the images?
They are in the back of a taxi, looking very distressed. At one point, it looks as though Harry might be filming what is going on as well. It is all very vague at the moment, but look, it plays into what Harry has been talking about only this week in court. 2 cases, a privacy case and a security case. He has been there fighting with the Home Office to get better security because of exactly incidents like this that he fears, because of his position, his family are not safe.
But it is a rather strange one because, for example, when the paparazzi were pursuing Diana, it was largely because she was in a car with Dodi Al-Fayed, and this was a picture that people were fascinated by, a relationship that people were intrigued by. Nobody could quite believe it was happening, and yet they seemed to be together. It was one of those, you know, million, even more dollar photographs, wasn't it? But pictures of Harry and Meghan and Doria Ragland, when they've just left a public arena, made a public appearance, you've seen what she's wearing, seen what he's wearing, you've seen who they're with, they're together. He's so Harry, Meghan, and his mother-in-law. You wouldn't have thought this is the $1 million shot. This isn't the photograph everybody wants to see. It's a photograph they've already seen.
There's an awful lot of money, though, in these photographs. And my understanding, although I'm not an expert on it, is that the regulations about pursuit in the United States are not as strong as they are in this country. And so reports in the US that it started off with 12 photographers surrounding and pursuing their vehicle. What unfolded during the course of that 2 hours, we don't know, but it does look as though at some point they changed vehicles to try and throw them off the scent and end that pursuit.
It's a genuinely perplexing and a mind-boggling story, I think, in every way.
Yes, and I do think
that's why I feel as if we're not getting the full story. I feel as if there's something in this jigsaw puzzle missing, because it doesn't seem to add up at all. You know, the photograph they want is the photograph that's the very difficult one to get, the one that they haven't got, the one that somehow escaped them, not the one they've already had in spades at the event of Harry and Meghan coming in, going out with her mother. You know, what else do they want? What else is there that makes them worth chasing for 2 hours? Unless they were purposely upsetting and annoying them and Meghan was crying and they wanted to get a shot of something like, could well be something like that.
To get a photograph of them looking distressed. I mean, whatever the motivation was, I think it is something that is absolutely at the forefront of their minds. It terrifies Prince Harry. He feels extremely protective over his family. He feels huge anger towards the paparazzi, and he has spoken before of fearing the history repeating itself.
I mean, in this instance, you can absolutely understand it, because if you've made a public appearance and you've posed, as we can see they have right there, 4 photographs, you've stood on the red carpet, you've had your picture taken.
Meghan had stood and made a speech as she accepted her award.
You feel as though you've done your bit, you've given your photos, then absolutely the paparazzi have got no right to pursue you, because you've given what they want, which is photographs, which this is how they make their living, and you've provided them. We can see their photographs of them leaving the event, and they were thoroughly photographed on the way out. So none of this really does add up, doesn't it? On the other hand, I mean, I know I'm not Harry, I know I'm not Meghan, but I've certainly had my share of being papped in my career. And in fact, only a few months ago, everybody probably knows I had a broken heart, all of that, and I made a public appearance the next day, thinking, well, okay, I'll go to this event, and anyone who wants to take a photo of me can take a photo of me. And that way they won't have to come to my house, hide behind my wheelie bins, lean on my doorbell, jump out at me just as I'm about to walk into the tube station, because here I am smiling in a bright dress the very day that this story is broken. And that's what I did. So I've been in the public eye now for about 35 years. So I thought I was playing it really well.
But you see, the photograph of you looking together and smiling isn't...
Well, that's exactly it, because the next, having done that, and I must say at great personal cost, because the last thing I felt like doing was making an appearance on the red carpet at all, as you can imagine, but I did it. And the next day, all the things I've just said happened. Jumped out from behind my wheelie bins, some so-called journalist leaning on my doorbell for a good 2 hours, somehow pursuing me down the escalator at the tube station, you know, all that kind of thing. So I thought I had done my bit. So in fairness, it doesn't always work. It really doesn't. You feel you've made your public appearance, they've seen you, they've taken photographs of you, now they will leave you alone. And I don't for a second put myself in their league, but I'm just saying from my own level of experience of this, it isn't always a quid pro quo that you feel you're cooperating and they will leave you alone. It's not always what happens.
And it is their first joint appearance since the coronation, since Prince Harry returned here without Meghan. She was there. It was... We knew that she was going to be in New York to accept this award. She's been keeping a pretty low profile of late, and then she was going to be on stage, so there was a huge amount of interest in this, and you can just see that with the images there as they're going through a car hire.
Yeah, if you're listening to this on the radio rather than seeing it on the television, they're walking through what looks like an ordinary sort of kind of car park to get
Whether
into
they've
the
got
venue.
a back entrance to get into
and they are
the
there. I mean, they are how many? What, 10, 12, at least more paparazzi, all holding up cameras to the window to try to get a picture of them going through. So certainly, you're quite right. There's a huge amount of interest generated, and if they say they were terrified, they probably were. Yeah, as you quite rightly say, puts, I suppose, all Prince Harry's claims about security into sharp relief.
Yes, and of course his claims about security are in this country rather than the United States, because he lost his right to Metropolitan Police protection when he left being a working member of the royal family and moved to the United States. His case returned to the High Court yesterday. It was argued that the Metropolitan Police officers are not bodyguards for hire. Harry had offered to pay for his security, but he wanted to have Metropolitan Police security with that level of intelligence and protection that they offer because of his position, the level of interest in him and the threats. We know that it has been much talked about, that the level of threats that they had received, and particularly towards Meghan. And Prince Harry is fighting to try and get that case in court.
Big piece in the Telegraph today talking about Harry pursuing, I think they said, 5 different matters through the court at once. So in all different courts, and all the High Court and all other courts, all kinds of
The Royal
cases.
Courts of Justice is very aptly named
pertaining
at the
to Prince
moment,
Harry.
yes.
So what's going on? What's he trying to do?
These are all cases surrounding privacy and security. So taking on various different newspaper groups over what he describes as gross invasions into his privacy, and taking on the Home Office and the Home Secretary over the decision that he shouldn't have that level of security when he returns. When he returned for the coronation, it's different because he's attending a royal event and therefore he gets swept up and becomes part of that bigger security operation. But this is if he and Meghan and the children decided to return to the UK on another visit, he feels that the security they have is not adequate. And incidents like this are exactly the kind of thing that he is talking about.
Sarah Hewson, thank you very much.